It seems like this show has already derailed.
We just started.
And it's only 5 seconds in.
They see me back, but I'm not dressed up, so they might actually stick
I
around
know,
for
I
long
wanted
until
to
they
say
realize.
thank you for dressing up, Dan. Really. Really. I mean, the last time I had you on my show, you looked really great. I mean, you even shaved the last time. I know. Gee, I mean, okay, summer house rules, I guess. This is your house.
Correct.
We are on location today. We are at the Belargins' house, so on location. Apologize for last week. We had no sound. Hopefully there's sound on this one.
Is there any way to
Well,
check?
worst case scenario, we're shooting it with 2 different cameras. So
This,
we can
fair
send-
enough. This is like, you should see this. This is a whole studio set up. And
It's a
you think
picture.
with all the money that I've spent on this equipment, something would work. But
See what happens.
who knows? So, you tell us what the coffee is? Tell us who you are and what the coffee is.
Hi, I'm Megan, and this is decaf house blend.
Why do you have to tell people it's decaf?
It's decaf.
Because that's what it is.
But it's one of the one of the better
That's one of
decafs out there.
For
I
the reasons
think.
you say it.
Just house blend, Starbucks.
House blend. Anyway.
So yes, for Saturday.
Revealing all my secrets. I have equipment that doesn't work and I drink
Unless
decaf.
we have this at 8 a.m., yeah, we can't.
Yeah, exactly. No, we're not doing it.
So when we do the Saturday morning show, it's normally in the morning or early afternoon. By the time we get a shot,
Where,
and we need coffee, like
Yeah.
with caffeine. But it's a little bit later now. So
Well, and I normally, people know by now, I normally record Coffee with FJ, so welcome to Coffee with FJ and welcome to Coffee with Dan and Megan, and we're all here together combining our shows for one big show. Normally I do record mine too, but it's usually in an afternoon or early evening, so I apologize, folks, it's decaf. But Father can't sleep.
be who you are. It's
Be
okay.
who I am, it's decaf. I do drink regular in the morning because the fog has to live somehow.
yes, yes.
Oh my goodness. So, thanks for being on the show again, and welcome to my show. Thanks for we're on location here in your beautiful home.
Yes, and our 8 children are
Hiding.
in
Oh,
hiding.
let's see what happens.
They might make
Something
a
is
cameo
bound
at
to-
some point, and
They might.
we're taking a chance by shooting a doorway there. You never know who might appear in the doorway behind us.
Fair enough, and I hope it's my pal Andre because I hope he brings bacon.
So we're talking about friendship today, aren't we?
We are.
Yeah, what are we talking about?
I don't know. At this point, I have no idea what we're talking about. So the point of this my show anyway is about ask questions, get answers. I used to do a question and answer with college students. We've done this in our retreats. And I wanted.
Is that our
There's
car?
a car alarm going
Is
off
that yours?
outside. No, I don't think so.
It just
No,
sounds really
it's
No,
close.
sounds really
We're
close,
good.
but it's not my car. But anyway, so the point is that a lot of times we get questions and people want answers. Well, what about the Catholic faith or whatever? We talk about Catholic education, and in our video previous, one of the questions I got from very early on in starting the show was about friendship and how to have authentic friendships. And I thought that was a really great question, actually, because that's a really important aspect of life, having authentic friendships. And I think we can often mistake workplace as a means to make friends, or if we have similar interests, that means we have to be friends. And I don't think that of course Aristotle says that, right? That there's friendships of pleasure, there's friendships of utility. But there's also friendships of the good, and that's what I want to hone in on, friendships of the good. And what does it mean to have that type of friendship? And I wanted to have Megan on this show in particular because we've been friends for
25 years.
25 years. Oh, God.
We are getting old.
So in this,
And Dan's here just because,
I'm a friend-in-law,
Yeah.
and that's how it works.
We had to invite him. His feelings would have been hurt. No, I mean, hi.
Well, I think that talking about authentic friendship, I mean, maybe like a story to illuminate that would be when we were coming to Springfield. So I was interviewing for the position to come out here to be the superintendent, and one of the first things that Megan said to me when that process was going in, I think you need to call my friend, Father Jonathan Reardon. I said, okay, I'll call Father John Reardon, right?
And Father John, I will talk to a brick wall. So, I mean, so
So I did. I called and we talked about the state of the church here. And
Yep.
we're from the Northeast, so we knew that
Yeah.
evangelization is something that's needed here, and it's one of our desires and one of the draws we had to come here. And I'll never forget it because I had gone into the central office, and we were living in New Hampshire at the time. And I drove up, and I was on the phone with Megan as I was driving, and it's beautiful. Once you get outside of Springfield and Holyoke, and you drive up into the hills,
That's
up
right.
towards South Deerfield.
there's nothing like South Deerfield.
It really was pretty.
Really nice.
And I said, it's really pretty out here, because I hadn't spent a lot of time in Western Mass.
Right.
And then I got over to Father's house, and he invited me in. We had a cup of coffee, and it was like we were old friends.
Yeah.
I mean, it was very honest. It was very straightforward. It was very nice. And it was one of the pieces that said, yes, this is a good place. We can do work here. We're going to have some semblance of community.
And I think
At the
that's
very
the
beginning.
point. That's the point of authentic friendship. It's community, right? It's not necessarily based on similar interests or the fact that you work together. It's that you establish a relationship, you know, and that becomes. And I think especially for priests need community, right? We need to have those authentic friendships because community is such an important piece of being human, right? Right, it's no man is an island, right? That famous cliche saying, but it's true. No, we were not created for isolation. We were created for relationship, and those relationships look different, you know, in various lives. Like I'm a priest, so I don't have a spouse, but I have close friends, you know, and I don't have a household community, you know, like you guys do. But that doesn't mean I can't have community. Right? It means that I need to find friends that are going to build me up in faith and build me up as a man of God, and that I can do the same for as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, and Megan can talk to that kind of long distance friendship piece because so many of Megan's friends don't geographically live
Right.
here.
And
I mean,
we weren't close for the longest time until the last year.
I
So
know, this has been great.
it's been wonderful.
So the Lord kind of moves us in and out of
Right.
these moments of encounter,
Right.
right? But the friendships
Remain.
maintain
Right.
if they're authentic,
Right.
despite the distance. And that's something like you're so good with, you know, with your close friends and staying in touch and appreciating the time that you have
Right.
with them.
Well, because it's based on love, right? It's based on willing the good for another.
Right.
Right? It has nothing to do with political interests or I like video games or soccer or whatever. It has everything to do with the fact that I want what's good for this person, and this person wants what's good for me. And it might start out with similar interests. It might start out as workplace friendships, but it has organically can evolve into something far more beautiful because it grows and it deepens based on. That's not so much about the interests anymore or convenience. It's about I really want what's good for this person. I really want this person to be happy, to be joyful, to get to heaven, etc. And so that forms the bond. And then when the bond is formed, you can be honest with one another. You can build each other up. You can call each other on, and that love remains the grounding of the relationship more, and not so much it moves from. Does that make sense? From the launching pad into something far greater, far deeper.
Definitely.
That makes sense?
Yes.
Yes? You have nothing to add?
I think just drawing on what you said about we were made for like community, not isolation and stuff like that. But I think about that a lot. One day I'll write about it.
Maybe
me a while.
me too. Yeah.
But just over the years, I think a lot about like Genesis, and a lot of people like God made Eve for Adam, and like a lot of times that's with marriage and it's beautiful. But there's also God made a helper for Adam. He made someone to help him along the way, and I think about that for friendship a lot because we weren't created to walk this earth alone. We're created to help each other.
Right.
So,
Right.
so I think that's I really like that part of Genesis. So.
Yeah, it's important, I think, especially for priests, to understand that it's okay to have friendships outside of the priesthood. I was saying to another friend of mine, especially during the quarantine and during the pandemic, when many of our priests live by themselves, I live by myself, and it can be hard at times. Sometimes I love it, sometimes I hate it, but I was saying to another friend of mine, I said, you go home and you have community, you're not so isolated in your quarantine, but when I'm home, I'm isolated.
Right.
So I still had to seek out, like I came here a couple times, I went home once, but there's a family in the parish that really took care of me during that time, and it was really beautiful for me because I got to know them better, and that became my quarantine community, if you will.
And it's so important because when I was in high school, I used to visit. My mom worked at a retirement home for priests for a while, and I used to go in and visit, and it's filled with priests,
Yeah.
old priests, and they would all be in their rooms, all by themselves, and just be in there, and it was so sad, and they didn't want to come out to community dinners or anything, like the dining area. They didn't want to come out and play games or anything like that because they had been so used to being alone. They didn't know any of the guys that were in there.
Wow.
And it was really sad to see because they didn't want to start friendships at 80, 90 years old.
Yeah.
They were just kind of like, I'm used to being by myself, so I will. And that was really sad. But it left, as a teenager, that left a really big impression on me, that the priests do need that friendship, that community, whether, obviously amongst priests, but then also outside.
Yeah, and I think for priests it's good because obviously there's a point where priests need to be by themselves to pray, to read, to study, to reflect, and all those things. So to recharge and to be able to serve the community, we need that isolation and time to recharge our batteries. It's not always about being out with people, though that is a big piece of the priesthood. And just because you're out with people doesn't mean that you have to be friends with all the people.
That's right.
Nevertheless, it's a good reminder to us that we are still just men who need people to help them get to heaven. Right? We need people to ground us in our own faith, and not just always have to be the people that lifts up everybody else. I think that can be burdensome, in one sense.
It's important to have those friends that you can be vulnerable with.
Yep.
And share, your deeper, thoughts and feelings, but also, to not always be the one who builds up. That when you need it, someone else will build you up.
Right, exactly.
You
We're
can
walking
become
the same.
just a helper, and then it's like, no, we both, we need to have a good balance of that, I think.
So this leads me to another question I get a lot, and I'm sure you've heard this too. So we're talking about authentic friendships where we share mutual faith. What about friendships that don't share faith? So I'm a Catholic and you're not, or maybe you're atheist or Protestant or Muslim, now obviously that doesn't mean you can't be friends, but it kind of changes the landscape a bit, doesn't it?
You can.
It does.
That doesn't mean we can't learn from each other and respect each other.
Right, and it doesn't even. So my best man is not a Catholic, and we've been close since college, and we have a lot. We've gone through a lot of joys, a lot of sorrows. We've gone through just a lot in our lives together, and he's been my confidant, and I've been his confidant, and even though we don't share the depth of our faith together, when we're together, he always asks, Dan, would you mind praying grace before we eat? Things like that. So he knows the faith is important to me, and he respects that.
Yeah.
And if they need prayers,
they ask for us.
And
Yeah.
it's an honor.
They do, and they ask us to pray for them and things like that. So I think that it's important in friendships that cross the lines in a way where you might be of different faith. I think it's important to still authentically be who you are in your faith, and to not be afraid of how your faith makes you who you are.
Right.
Because if you hide that from them, then there's no
You're not being yourself.
you lack the depth of truth in that, and you won't have an authentic friendship. And you see this with married couples a lot of times. You see that when you have couples of different faith traditions. You know, I don't want to force my faith on you, or
Right.
it can become.
It can be tense.
And the reason it's tense is because I think that one or both of the people are not allowing themselves to be authentic, and you have to allow yourself to be authentic for a friendship to really work.
But also to not cause any animosity between one or the other. And I see that in some marriages that I obviously I know a lot of people in my parish. Who, my husband doesn't go to church, my wife doesn't go to church, and I find a lot of times too that there is an animosity from one towards the other. More often than not, from the one who doesn't have faith towards the one who does. And that is why I think a lot of people hide the fact that they're Catholic because, or they have faith. No matter what your faith is, they hide it because I don't want to be ridiculed by this person who's supposed to love me and I'm supposed to love in return. Right?
Yeah, no, I've had a lot of conversations with folks about that specifically,
Yeah.
and it really has to do, I think, with at this time, especially in the culture that we live in, one of the most difficult things is for a person to believe that they are capable of being loved, right? And so if one of the spouses is in a deep relationship with Christ, right, but they themselves are struggling with depression or despair or whatever else it is, it's like they look at that and they can almost project on that other person, like, I wish I could be loved like that, but I know I can't be loved like that, right? And so it perpetuates this cycle, and I think that the way through that is really to open the doors through the prayer of, I want you to know how much you are loved. See, and that's not even getting into the depth of Catholicism, right? That's just like, I want you to know.
That's just a matter of being human. Yeah.
That you are loved, and I want you to know how wonderful you are, and how much you can be loved. Not that you can be loved, but how much you can be loved. And I think that's the doorway in to start to evangelization, of being able to share the gospel. Because Jesus comes into this world, into this dark world, and he's the light. And so all you're doing is breaking apart that darkness for a second and saying, there is a light. There's a light there that's ready to love you deeply. But that takes a certain level of courage and time and patience.
Just like it takes time to get to know a person in a friendship or a relationship, it takes time, to crack that nut.
Absolutely. I was thinking, you were saying before, about these friendships, and you use Genesis, and I like the Genesis reflection. I also like the Luke reflection, right? So when they're sent out 2 by 2, right? So for the priests to be in isolation, that
doesn't seem right based on that gospel.
It doesn't. It's something that's very concerning because it really does set up, a culture of isolation, and that's something I think that we need to continue to pray for our church to be able to find creative ways to make sure that the priests aren't in isolation. Everything that you deal with is spiritually exhausting, emotionally exhausting. Like you got another dimension of what you're dealing with as priests. So that 2 by 2, I think, is so important, and it's a way that we as a married couple can support you, right, by having you over, and it's not that you're just a project. You're a friend, right? It's different. But
we're on location here, but I promised that Megan would cook for me if I came here. So,
but I think I like
Dan's actually gonna do most of it.
I like the Maurice. I like the Maurice and Therese friendship. So Saint Therese kind of adopted this seminary, Maurice, and they never met.
Yeah.
And yet they were friends. And so
we read those letters in seminary on retreat. We would read those. So one of the guys would have to read each day. When I was in seminary, was the reflections or the not the reflections, but the openness of both of them towards each other was just number one, authentic, but number two, just moving. Very moving.
Yeah, because we can sometimes get in the habit of quantifying our friendships.
Right,
like,
exactly.
I haven't seen him in a week. I haven't seen them in a month. He hasn't called me this many days. And we can get in the habit of quantifying it.
Right.
And I think
the phone works both ways.
Yeah. I mean, how many? And that's part of our broken human nature. But you look at the letters, those letters specifically, and they tell a story of friendship that is so much deeper
Yeah.
than our current culture's quantification of it, right? We know the people who are watching this on YouTube are on their devices.
Right.
And sometimes we judge our friendships by who's liked a post or
Right.
who's
How many
watched
people
it.
are viewing this?
How many people view this? Well, obviously we shouldn't shoot it because only 20 people viewed it. Who cares? Because it's not
It
about
means nothing.
the quantification of it. It's about something much deeper.
Correct.
And I think that our world, unfortunately, and the culture is forcing a quantification onto friendship that is unnatural and
Right.
not based in kind of a proper understanding of the
We
human
don't know how
person.
to give of ourselves in an authentic way anymore.
Right.
That's the problem. That's one of the problems. It's not the only problem, but it is a problem.
Right.
Right? I mean, it is that authentic human nature of being yourself, and we're hiding ourselves because we're hiding behind the screens, right? Or when I was at a religious profession a few years ago, another one of my good friends, Sister Mary Michaela, and the bishop, I think it was Bishop Carlson, actually gave a fantastic homily about the culture of selfie, the selfie culture, right? Where we want to take pictures of ourselves, but we're only putting up an image of what we really are, right? And he said, and that image is what we want people to see, right? That's what that's the projection of myself that's out there. Whereas what does God really want us to be isn't the projection. It's inside. It's interior. It's the authentic self isn't a selfie, an image of the self, a projection of self. It is. I forget the way he really worded it, but it made me think about how the sisters who were making their profession that day, you know, they were more concerned about the way God sees them than the way the world sees them. Right? More concerned about their authentic self than the Instagram self.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Or the Instagram's a thing, right? That's still a thing. Okay,
It's the Snapchatagram. Yeah.
This is beyond my world right
This
here.
is
Like,
impressive.
yeah.
This is very impressive.
What can I say? I learned a lot since quarantine.
It's a time.
But in marriage, I think it's the same. Like you have to be friends.
Well,
You
that's how-
have to be.
that's the
You
best
have
way
to be
for it
friends.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I would say
Yeah.
But you see so many marriages that either
they're not friends.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
predicated on other things.
Right.
It's not predicated on the unique, authentic friendship between the two people.
Right.
Connected to God. It's predicated on something else.
Right.
And that's where you can see the deterioration of it. When you can't be your authentic self with your spouse.
Yeah.
Right. That's where it erodes.
But I think it goes back to what you're saying too. You have to start by being honest with who you are, right? With this is who I am. I'm a man of faith, or I don't have faith, or you have to still be honest with yourself, because then that starts the selfie culture. You're just projecting an image of yourself towards those. That's what I want people to see about me is
Right.
my perfect face and my likes and all that, but it's not you.
Well, in my perfect family, my perfect this, my perfect whatever, everything.
Right. It's the image.
And it
And
becomes,
letting it through.
and it was what John Paul had said, and this is a stretch, but it goes on when you look at the issue with pornography. What John Paul said, he said the problem with it is it doesn't show enough.
Right.
And what he's talking about is this is a flat image.
It's one-dimensional.
It's one-dimensional. You don't know that person's soul struggles,
Right.
life, heart, where they are. You don't know that person.
Right.
The intimate union in the gospel is about knowing, to
Right.
know one another, and that's a much deeper bond than what's presented. And friendships work the same way, to really know the person to the depths of who that person is.
Right.
And that's why great friendships last forever. They seem to.
Right.
Over 20 years or something. I remember with Carrie, we saw her, and then we didn't hear from her for how long? It was like
Yeah. Well, we had
years.
lost touch for a little while too, and then we had Jonathan, and then we got back together again. But it didn't matter.
Right.
Like we had been friends since we were 14, and
Well, and look at our
sometimes-
other priest friend, Father David. We've known Father David since we were teenagers.
I know.
You
It's
know?
so crazy. And
I
like,
know,
yeah,
and
it
we're
was-
still friends. You know, there's still that, because it has that authenticity, it has that depth.
Yep.
And
It
even
doesn't
if you
matter
lose
how
touch
long. Yeah, it doesn't
for
matter
years.
how long
Yeah.
you're apart.
when you're back.
When he was in Italy, and then he came back, and now he's close by, thank God. And
So great.
yeah, and then when I was in Italy, we lost touch. But now, that again, it goes back to how do we have authentic friendships? First of all, be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Be honest with who you are. Be honest with your friends, and make sure your friendship is not based solely on convenience, interests. Or it might start that way, but at the same time, if it's not based on something real and it's not grounded in something far better and more than that, then it's not really an authentic, a
Right.
friendship of the good.
Right, and regardless of whether your best friend is an atheist or not, it also has to be grounded in the God who holds all these things together.
Right.
Like at least from your perspective,
Right.
You must still ground that friendship in the truth of who Christ is,
Right.
or at some point it will divert away from being authentic,
Correct.
because there is only one authentic. There's only one truth, and that is to direct to God, and it's not to push. It's to reflect, it's to witness, it's to do all these other things that clearly demonstrate that God is at the heart of who we are,
Right.
and therefore is a part of the relationship, no matter what.
Right, because true love is willing the good of the other.
Right.
So we're supposed to, like in our friendships, we're supposed to try to, will the good of them, but also to like help bring them to heaven one day. I mean, that's really
Really.
the goal. I mean,
That really is the
I
goal.
want you in heaven. that's.
Thanks.
I want
I want you in
there.
heaven too.
I was left out.
Well,
and I say all the time with Dan, like, I always say, like, thank you for walking me home, because, like, heaven is home, and, like, that's his job. Sorry.
Good luck.
And then I'll hopefully be able to help
I
him.
got an easier job than she does.
Yeah. You got that right.
I married up.
Yep.
But that's the end goal, because, this world will be filled with sorrows and all these other things, but, like, in heaven, there'll be perfect joy and perfect, like, our friendships that are here, and our authentic friendships, like, how much cooler are they going to be in heaven? They're just going to be...
Exactly. So, well, thank you both for indulging me in this.
It's great.
This was great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So just so you know, I take this show on the road.
We'll have you again.
Thank you. I love it here. And I'll be back again on Tuesday next week. No. I'm here all week, folks. But please stay tuned for another episode coming up in a few weeks. And thanks again to Dan and Megan for indulging me in this topic of friendship, which I think is an important one. So thank you both.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
God bless you.
God bless you all in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Amen.